And just like that, we are back with episode 5 of the Max Original Show. And just like that, it's your guy here, Lucas, with my amazing co host, Amaya. What is going on with you this evening, ma'am?
Hey, I'm here. Okay, I sound very labored. I'm not feeling well, so I'm gonna just push through. Okay.
There you go. She was hanging around with Shay and Miranda all week, and just like Miranda,
Mm-mm.
like she just couldn't get any rest, no sleep, no nothing. That's all that is right there.
Listen, I need more of that. I'm gonna sleep tonight, though.
There you go. All right, let's. I think that's a good place to put this episode at the beginning of it, and that's Miranda not sleeping. As we're going to focus on Miranda's storyline at the beginning of this episode. For the beginning of our show, we're going to focus on Miranda's storyline here. So it starts off with Miranda waking up at an ungodly hour at Shay's house to go tend to Steve and Grady. I think it was both of them, which makes no sense in the
No,
world
not really. Who's
here.
more Grady than it was Steve? And it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So, one, what did you think about her making this early exit? Shay asking her to come back to bed and not leave, but Miranda making every excuse in the world why she has to go in super mother mode here.
Well, you know my thoughts. I'm done with Miranda and her shenanigans. I'm over it. It's ridiculous. He is old enough to be at college. He's old enough to have a job. He's old enough to wake up on his own. You ran away from Che to go and tend to a son who could cook his own breakfast, wake himself up, and then tell him that him and Steve would starve if she didn't cook. Are you serious? Like, it's it's giving guilty, it's giving
Yeah.
pushover, it's giving enabler. It's so many things that I just cannot with Miranda. Miranda makes me cringe. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's giving that I still feel bad that I broke up our family, so I'm going to do all the stuff to make it seem like we're still a family, even though we're not still a family. Down to the point when she gets to Grady and he's like, you don't have to do this. And that whole comment about they were starved, like, do men not know how to cook? Or do
I
these
don't
two
know.
men not know how to take care of themselves to the extent where you feel the need to overly focus on them? But then we have the backdrop of the episode, which is Miranda's not getting any rest.
Hmm.
So you're telling me you're leaving Shay's house first thing in the morning to get to Grady before he wakes up so you can cook breakfast,
So
and
he
then you're going
doesn't
to attempt
oversleep.
to, yeah, so he doesn't oversleep, you're going to lose sleep, but he grown, but so he can't oversleep. It makes no sense. And then we get later on in the episode where we have, not sure it's called a big party, a regular Tuesday for Shay, as they throw this huge get together with friends,
Hmm.
oblivious of what time it is, as Miranda's in the other room trying to get rest here. What do you think about the ongoing theme about Miranda in this episode putting everyone else in front of her?
I mean, that's what Miranda does. I think that part of the episode made me think like, are they good together? I feel like
Hmm.
there's this weird thing that Miranda is trying to nurture Che, and
Yes.
they don't need nurturing, right? And it's bothersome to me because it's like, what exactly are we doing here? Why do you feel the need to like almost not really coddle, but there's this weird like to make yourself miserable for other people. You know you haven't been sleeping. You could have got a hotel. It's not like she's broke. Miranda could have got a hotel, even if it was just for the night.
Mm.
Get a hotel, get you some proper rest. But, this whole back and forth of expending herself, and nobody around her seems to really
Hmm.
care until she brings it up. That's when people are
Yeah.
like, oh, we'll do what's best for you. Like Che was like, oh, we'll do what's best for you. And Grady saying, like, we really don't need you here. Like, you're doing this under your own free will. I mean, the whole pumpkin scene, all that was just, it's too much. That boy is not 5. Let him go.
Yeah, that's why it didn't make sense. Again, this is all guilty parent. I'm the one who broke up our family. So now I need to make up for everything. But I did have the same questions about them when they were back at Shay's place, because at what point in time do you put your partner first and say, man, if you ain't gonna take care of yourself, I'm gonna at least do some stuff to make sure that you're still good. and to throw a party till 3 o'clock in the morning with everybody high, everybody loud, and you know
Mm-hmm.
your partner's in the other room sleep or attempting to sleep, it's selfishness. And it brings up the same question we've had so far this entire season. Why are they together? Like,
Mm-hmm.
is she just Miranda's? Is Shay just Miranda's escape plan? Is she just
Mm-hmm.
using her to get out of this relationship with Steve, and she needs something or someone else to grab onto? And Shay was around, and that's who she grabbed onto, because that's all it's giving so far. What we're seeing in this season. But next up is the big costume party. Now, I love costume parties. I don't dress up, but I love costume parties. I love
I
other
do
people
too.
dressing up. Yeah, I love other people
Listen, if you
dressing up.
don't show up this year, I'm putting you out. I'm
Oh, I'm
putting you
showing
out
up
if you
as
don't show up in a costume this
Dirk Diggler from Boogie Nights.
year. I'm done. I'm done with
But
you.
at this big fundraiser, it's not much to glean from this besides Harry and Charlotte dressing up as the Americans. For people who don't know what that show is, and most people don't,
Yeah.
they're gonna look at them like, "What? Like, who are
Mm-hmm.
you dressed up as here? It makes no sense." I
Absolutely.
gleaned way more from the conversation that led after the party with Lisa and Herbert
Mm-hmm.
about him saying, "Because you have thrust me into this political arena, I can't be seen basically having fun."
Right.
What did you think about? Because again, not much to talk about the party. The party was just a party. It was all charity parties are. No big deal there. But what did you think about Lisa and Herbert's conversation after the party or during the party, and then what it led to after the party about him
Going
being
into that.
afraid to let
Right.
loose?
Well, I think that, I maybe I feel like Lisa does understand like what it takes to be in the political office, right? But I also
Yeah.
think that she's still saying like that doesn't mean you have to like you're with your wife. If you can't act with your wife, you can't, be in a safe space or a fun space with your wife, then like
Hmm.
kind of what's the point? And I think Herbert has kind of always been not necessarily a stick in the mud, but kind of a stick in the mud. Like he's very
Hmm.
particular about how people see him, how people view him, things of that nature. And so it's not far fetched, from like who he normally is and who he's been in the last few
Hmm.
episodes. I just think that I don't know. I kind of feel bad, for him in a way because he said that to do it. Her dad makes some sort of comment. Now she decides to, say that he is going to do it. And I guess he still would have to do it on his own, right? Like
Hmm.
he still has to say that he's going to do this. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like that he made fun with her after the party. He
Yeah.
put the costume on in the privacy of their home, and I thought that that was cool. But I get the sense that they're both just lying to themselves in some way of like trying to
Mm.
keep it together, look like the perfect couple. It almost reminds me of Janet Jackson and Malik Yoba and Why Did I Get Married?
Wow. That's you know what immediately popped into my head, and I know it's the wrong movie. Amari Hardwick and Janet Jackson in for Color Girls. I don't know why that was the
Oh,
one that popped into my head. But yes, that
mm,
image of the perfect marriage of Janet Jackson and Malik Yoba, and that's perfect. Perfectly, not just because they're black, but it's perfect to
right,
put because it's the image they portray to everyone else. That everything is always okay. Like we always have
mhm,
everything together. We have our
right,
daughter. She has civil rights braids when mom comes by. Like we do everything to have fun. And that's clearly just both. It's an image that both of them don't want to admit is just an image, and then that's
hmm
the problem that they struggle with the most. Because behind closed doors, you see the eternal struggle they have with one another over the simplest of things. Not necessarily things that would end a marriage, but definitely things that should bring up conversations that are in a
right.
marriage. And next up, again, this is it's not a lot here. I guess this was the humor part of the episode of a strange man on a playground approaching Rock to be in a Ralph Lauren modeling hat. Only my wonderful, amazing Caucasian brothers and sisters would ever think this was okay. That you approach my kid on the playground to offer them a modeling job. You have lost every bit of your mind.
Hmm.
Well, not even all the way, because clearly Harry had an issue with this from the beginning. Like, no, that just
Yeah.
sounds weird that you would do that. And
Hmm.
he's 100% right. But what do you think about just Charlotte's excitement that Rock got, she thinks Rock is getting this opportunity to model? Do you think it's because this is one of the few times that Rock has done something that could be considered girly, and
I don't
that's what
think so. I
Charlotte
think
sees
it's.
out of it? Meaning, it reminds Charlotte of herself because Charlotte says it like, I modeled for Ralph Lauren in a
I
mall.
think.
Like,
I think she likes that they can share something.
mm,
Like I think that's what it is. It's not necessarily like because Rock wasn't dressed feminine. It was
not at
skater
all.
chick kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So, but I think for Charlotte, it's the fact that I did do an ad or whatever for Ralph Lauren when I was younger. Now you get in an opportunity to work for Ralph Lauren,
Hmm.
and this is cool. We have something to share, and that the fact that Charlotte was the one who was more open minded outside of the hubby, it's like we get to bond. We have this moment. So I think it was more of a mother they moment because like that's what it is. And I mean, I think Rock
Hmm.
appreciated it that they were
Yeah.
able to kind of have that fun and feel supported and loved and encouraged to do this opportunity despite what Dad was saying.
And down to Charlotte showing up to the Ralph Lauren photo shoot in all vintage Ralph Lauren, just like Charlotte. You would expect
Just
nothing else.
absolutely, absolutely nothing but that.
Now, I'm gonna go back a little bit because it's one thing I did skip at the costume party, and that was a conversation between Seema and Nala about meeting men, and her saying, "Hey, I have this perfect, expensive place to take you out to, because all the men will have money and we will have fun." Because in the
Hmm.
following scene, after the situation with Rock, we get Nyla, Carrie, and Seema at this very expensive bar. So
As
let me ask you
always.
one question first, okay? Have you and all any of your female cohorts ever gone to an expensive bar to say, let's just mingle and see what type of guys we meet and we'll run into?
Well, I have not necessarily with my other friends, but I've done it solo dolo just to see,
Mm,
But there are some nice new restaurants and bars that are popping up in the DMV area, so I will make sure
mm-hmm.
to set out and put on my real woman heels, not my kitten heels or church heels, so that I could get
You better not
snagged.
put on them prayer heels, those Mary Magdalene
Not
sixes,
the
none of
oh
them
my
things.
gosh, not the sixes. Did you name them? Oh no. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe it.
I only ask that question because as a man, you would be seen as a complete creep if you ever said, let me go to this bar where all these rich women hang out at and see what can happen. Unless you're a gay man, and then you would do the same thing. Go to a gay bar with a bunch of rich gay
Well,
men in the area, see who you can meet.
I don't think so. I feel like if you are looking for
Really?
somebody, why not look for somebody? Here's the thing. You're not going to pray, right? You're not like sitting there and looking at women come in and writing down stats. You know what I mean? If you just genuinely go, you're like, listen, this bar looks nice. I heard that if you go to nice
Mm,
bars, you might meet new, beautiful people. I'm gonna go set the bar, have a drink. As long as you're enjoying yourself while you're there, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think that sometimes we demonize things for men when it's completely okay for them to do it like a woman should. Like you should be able to go to the bar if you're a single man who's a good man or whatever, just single because good is subjective, and you're looking for a girlfriend or a wife. Like
uh-huh.
why not? The dating apps are getting played, so I mean I would try it.
I mean, let's see from a male perspective that for some men, it comes with a cost that they're not prepared for. Because
Mm-hmm.
normally the icebreaker for a lot of men is, can I buy you a drink? And you hope
Well,
that
don't go
leads
if
to
your
a
pocket's low.
conversation. Not only that, but don't go if you don't have personality. Like, I think that's the key part of anyone who goes to a bar. Because even in this scene, when we go back to it, we see Sema run into this gentleman who keeps on pushing a gin. So clearly he's working the room trying
Mm-hmm.
to get this notice. And we see her approach with him. it was to be flirtatious, a little funny, to
Mhm.
spark up a conversation. We see Nala on the other end. A man approaches her, and she seems like the most awkward person humanly
She's
possible.
very giddy. Yeah, she's. I feel
Yeah.
like she is shy. This is brand new to her. We don't really know how long her and her husband were together, right? So this is fairly new
Oh
to
no,
her.
they
She's
says it.
back
They
on the
said it in
scene.
this episode. I want to say, didn't they?
Oh, I don't
Said that they've been
remember.
together since high school
Oh,
or
okay.
something like.
So,
Oh, we. I think they've
oh
hinted
yes,
toward before that they've been
right.
together. Yeah.
Because Seema says that you've only seen two penises, I believe. Her
Mm-hmm.
husband. I'm guessing. I don't know who the other one was, but that does declare that yeah, it's been a very
Usher.
long
Everyone.
time.
Every other penis is Usher.
Oh my gosh, I'm not doing this.
That's the
It's cute.
rules. I mean, we can't help it. We cannot help it. That's the
No.
rules.
But yeah, I think Naya is just excited to be noticed. She's excited to be seen outside of the marriage, to feel affection for, even if that affection is just for the one night only. And so I kind of like that, and I also like that they are not calling it the walk of shame, but the what I can't remember what they said, but it wasn't the walk of shame. Her going home the
Is it
next morning.
like I'm about to say? Yeah. Is it? I think with the new change, with our generation becoming the older people, we're going to credit us here, are these elder millennials here, that our generation, I think, have turned the tide on that being the walk of shame. There's no shame in having a one night stand and then going home in the morning. I mean, matter of fact, it's one of the best experiences you can have if it's with the right person.
I've never
You
had a
know,
one night stand. I know.
huh?
I'm just that good. They always want me to come back. No, I just never have. I just never have. I mean, I tried to one time, but that doesn't count. But
Yeah.
it just didn't work.
Brandy
So,
already told you almost doesn't count. So yeah, no, an
damn.
almost one night stand ain't a one night stand. But so before we get into Seema's section of it, just what'd you think about Nyla's excitement afterward? Like she seemed the one night stand for her, it seemed to boost her confidence, which was highly
Mhm.
important to her. It
Mhm.
felt like she reopened herself to the world from this one night stand. Did you get that perspective from her when she was talking with Miranda about everything that happened that night?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, she needed that. It was a confidence boost. When you've been in a relationship for so long, there are a lot of people who feel like, damn, I might have lost it. What if I'm
Mhm.
not good looking to whomever? And so
Yeah.
I think for her to see that, she still got it, and she can dress in her comfort, because I feel like she wasn't out of her norm, right? She just like
No.
beautiful, but still comfortable to her. And she was still approached by a young man. So I think that that was just her way of like opening the door. I think that it was just a little nerve wracking for her, but now that she's opened the door, I think she's good to go.
Okay, now we're gonna get to the fun part here.
Oh Lord.
And this is Seema who takes the gentleman who was selling the wine, the gin who won. I don't
Mm.
know too many people who even drink gin still. Like y'all
Jim
are
make you
brave
sad.
people out here. Exactly. And it makes other things happen too, obviously. So while they're getting hot and heavy, this man shares a very intimate thing with Seema, and that is that from time to time he suffers from ED.
Mhm.
She tended not to mind at all. Like that was a okay, like it happens. Can't say nothing
Right.
about that. Cool, not a problem. And then he proceeds to, after he double confirms she cool with it, to pull out a penis pump. So first we're going to focus on him pulling out the pump of penis, and then him doing the penis of pumps. And then we'll talk about that part. What would you
I
do
can.
if a gentleman told you one they had this condition, which is very real, not nothing to joke about here, people. It's nothing to joke about
Right.
having. ED is serious. It's a serious condition.
Yeah.
But what would you think if they pulled out a penis pump in front of you to get themselves going?
So here's my thing, and I guess I would like to understand it a little bit more, because in my head I thought that it just meant that you either couldn't, like that, and you couldn't stay hard, or that you had trouble getting hard. But the way he said it, he said sometimes, I didn't know that means he needed a jump start. That's what threw me off, because I figured he was just saying like, in the event that it happens,
Yeah.
I'm just letting you know that it's a possibility. So when he pulled out this little briefcase, right, with the penis pump in it, I was very much like, oh my gosh, like
Hmm.
I had my face like Sema. He's like, it's cool, right? She's like, yeah. Because, I mean, what you going to do about it now? You know what I mean? Um, yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot to take in. I do think that I feel like at least he was honest and
Yeah.
vulnerable, because that is an honest and vulnerable thing to share with a stranger that you
Hmm.
just met. But I think that was it was good that we can see these conversations are happening, especially as we're getting older. So it's like I may come across that as a woman, but just the conversation that we're having around sex, around all these different things, and watching them have these conversations, it's like, oh, okay, like you said, it's nothing to joke about. It does happen, and I think that in order to be able to support that person in the it's necessary.
Hey, one, I can't help you about the penis pump thing. I don't even know how they
Oh
work.
my
I would be
gosh,
highly confused. Like,
I
I'm
bet.
assuming it goes into the urethra and then you pump it up. I'm assuming. I
No,
don't
you
know.
actually
I
just
don't know people.
put the pump on top of the penis, and you really, it's like a suction cup.
Oh
It's
God,
literally just
how?
yeah.
See, and this is why I don't have a penis pump. Because clearly I would have done irreparable damage. Because I would have always assumed it goes in there, but now that I hear myself say it, it literally doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It
Just
makes no sense to
just a
do.
smidge.
Yeah, but I was way more interested in just how open minded Seema seemed to be in that moment of it
Mm-hmm.
happening. But then as we get to the second part of this, when she has the conversation with Carrie, I think that's when the more truth comes out. When she said, yes, he had a penis pump, but basically, who am I to at this point judge what men can do? Like, I don't know. More,
Right.
it seemed like she was more stating that she's settling for him because like the pool isn't that deep anyway. Like I can't throw him back for this. As she said, he pulled out a penis pump and gave me B plus intercourse. Even going to the extent of saying she's not even having sex to finish because most times she has to finish herself anyway. Like, what did you think about the conversation
Yeah.
afterwards? And just what were your thoughts on Seamer's perspective of everything? Because I thought that was the most interesting part of it.
I mean, I think that she's right. Just like when you get into every segment of dating is different. Your
Mm-hmm.
dating in your 30s is different than dating in your 40s and it is dating in your 50s. There are always going to be, like, the people tell you, like, oh, you're almost 40, you should be okay with dating a man who has kids, because it's a high probability that you're going to meet a man with kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily saying that it's settling, it's just saying that I think with Seema, it was just her saying that, um, listen, dating in this age bracket is completely different. And if this is the
Mm-hmm.
issue that I have to deal with him, if it's the ED, then okay, cool. It's not a big deal, because everybody's got something. And I think I like that theory. Everybody does have something. Nobody's going to be perfect. It's just, what are you willing to
To
put
deal
up
with.
with? Essentially, the 80
Mm-hmm.
20 rule. Yeah.
Yeah. But it wasn't even necessarily him having ED and that being something she had to deal with. It's her saying to me, like, I'm not even planning on getting off with him or anyone else. Like, I know I'm going to have to do this myself. I think that is more of the settling issue for me because if, what's the point of it if you don't,
But there
again,
are a
as a
lot
man,
of
I
women.
can't fully understand it because as a man, no matter what, it could be subpar and I can get
But
to
that
the,
is the whole
to,
point. We've been having this conversation for eons with you all, that men are, it's a high probability you are going to get off. It's very high. For women, it's not the same. You have women who are clitoral stimulated. You have women who are vaginally stimulated. You have women who need the whole foreplay, the all of that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not going to be a guarantee that every same motion is going to work for every woman. It's also our job to guide you and give you some sort of
Mhm.
directions or instructions on how to please. If I like you enough, I'll give you directions and instructions, right?
Yeah.
You can't be a guy who talks a lot of shit and then turns around and I have to finish myself off with a vibrator. So I think that it's real, unfortunately, it's realistic. I don't think it's necessarily settling per se. It's just kind of like it's a high probability that I might not get off and that I'm gonna pull out this vibrator. It doesn't mean that it's not pleasurable too. So like, let's say that I just want to make sure, like, I've had experiences where I didn't necessarily have an orgasm at the end. That doesn't mean that the experience itself wasn't pleasurable. I just didn't get to the orgasm. And so I think that there's sometimes I feel like sometimes we've made sex about like exercise versus the connection with people. You're not always gonna
Yeah.
finish, right? So
I mean, I know that, unfortunately.
no, I
But
mean, yeah,
not the other way around, just me.
oh my
But
gosh.
but the other part of this that was very interesting is by the time we close out their storyline and they have sex again, and she told Carrie, I invited him back over, like, yes, we could do this again. So she gives it another chance. And after he finishes, she pulls out a vibrator and he
Hmm.
gets upset
Yeah.
about her putting about saying, not cool. That is not cool that you're doing that.
Hmm.
And then she said, like, I had to, your penis pump is next to my dishes.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely not.
how is this a
Absolutely.
problem for you?
Absolutely not. Why is his penis pump in addition? No, absolutely not.
Mm, that's nasty.
Throw the whole dishwasher
Absolutely
away.
nasty.
No.
Exactly. But my thing is, and I think this is a generational thing here. I'm gonna say that, or comfortability standpoint from an older male generation. I feel as a man, like, okay, if that's what you need, how can I assist? Like,
Hmm.
we're gonna do this together. Like, we got into this together. You done watch me pump up my penis, and we done did the things. Like, the least I can do at that point is, hey, well, let me play with the vibrator with you. Let me see what helps get you off. And I think
Hmm.
it was I don't want to call it selfish, but it came across as selfish because, like, once I finish, I don't care what, like, I just don't want you to do anything that's going to make me uncomfortable instead of making it a full sexual experience.
It was selfish and it was ego. If he really
Uh,
cared about her pleasure, he would not have cared. He would have said, "Well, what can I, like you said, what can I do to assist?" Or, "Hey,
mhm.
next time, tell me what I can do to help get you there." Because if you want to continue having sex with her, you should at least know what it is that turns
Yes.
on and gets her to that point. I do feel like it was, yeah, it was selfish and ego, and he could have just, he could have handled it much differently. But in that time, I think that he just was so busy being worried about himself. And I mean, quite frankly, the finish was ugly. He was noisy as hell, and you could tell that she was thoroughly not interested and did not have any sort of like
Yeah.
climax, orgasm, anything. And you were just laying there, like, I don't know. I mean, at least she didn't exclude him. She started to rub on him. She kept him in the game, so to speak,
That's what I
and he
mean.
still he still made it like difficult. So.
That's what it this threw me off so much that, hey man, that's a fun part. So you're telling me you bring this little thing here. I ain't gotta physically do the work. I can do everything. Cool, not a problem. We're gonna get this going. This is gonna be fun. Like that's what you expect your partner
Mhm.
to be like, and enthusiastic into helping you get off. But it's also a conversation that should be had at the beginning with people. If we're
Yeah.
gonna do this thing as you say, you've never had a one night stand. I've had a few,
Hmm.
and it's certain conversations that need to take place. Like, okay, so what are you in this for doing? Like, what do you want to do? Okay, I want to have sex. Great. Please let me know what what do you like? That's highly
Hmm.
important here because I could either be going at it forever trying to get you to a place where I think is more pleasurable for you, or if you let me know from a conversation of like how you stimulated, what stimulates you the most.
But that's the thing, like you said, there's a conversation that needs to be had. And I feel like it also, people are just afraid to have the conversation. I think it's easier to
Hmm.
do it almost as a game, as a mystery,
Yes.
blindfold me and just tickle, touch me in certain places. People don't know that the back of the knees is a hot spot. You know what I mean? The back of the
Hmm.
ear. There are a lot of things that we don't realize that really turn people on. I remember talking to a friend of mine who was like, "Oh yeah, I've had a nipple orgasm," and I'm like, "So literally no penetration, no oral, just a man." playing with her nipple and or nipples, and she's able to orgasm. So I think that sometimes some men miss the point that women are very connected. Like we're into like all of this is connected, right? You don't get to that without at least getting through some of this.
Yep.
And so when you miss all of this or you miss the important parts to your person, then that's where the
Hmm.
problem is.
And the same goes for women. Like
Yes.
for men, all of it is connected.
Yeah, ask the
The
question.
ears, the nipples still, like all of that is it's the same exact sensation.
I
But
think
it's
a
about
lot of
having that
men,
conversation.
yeah, I think a
Oh,
lot of
that
men
meant
don't
no.
have they haven't experienced like a full body touch. I'm not even talking
Listen.
about like sex, just the full body
Yeah,
touch
just
because
yeah.
that's different. You know what I mean?
Hey, that's why it's
Because
highly
don't touch
important.
my nipples.
Sensual massages are amazing
They are.
without penetration and just learning each other's bodies and things of this
Absolutely.
nature and having those conversations that are very difficult for certain people to have. But come
Hmm.
on, if you're going to jump into a situation where you are entering someone's body, I think a conversation is the least of your problems. That should be the easy thing to do.
That part.
Hey, maybe it's just me. But speaking of things being easy or things being difficult and things that I don't like bike lanes and I don't like people on bikes.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
Carrie here, as she's having a conversation that is blowing her mind, she mistakenly
Hmm.
stops in a bike lane, and a gentleman who needed to avoid hitting her forgot that bikes had brakes and instead just toppled over and fell
Yeah.
in turn hurting himself. One, what do you think about bike lanes? Let's talk about that before we get into
Oh
anything
my
else. What do
gosh.
you think about bike lanes?
So I was on my way to the mall the other day and I saw all of these signs that was like the circle with the the block and then the no
Yeah.
bike lanes, and I'm
Hmm.
like, what is wrong with these people? Like, why are they so against the bike lanes? Like, no bike lanes, no bicycles. And I'm like, first of all, I'm from New York City. Bikes are a thing, whether we have lanes or not. Bikes are a thing. So like for me,
Hmm.
it's something that is normal. I lived in DC again. Bike lanes are a thing, whether they exist or not. Bicycles are going to be coming through. So for me, I
Yes.
did find it very interesting that he didn't use his brakes. I'm like, what are you doing here, sir? You're not like, are you running? Like, did somebody cut your line? Are you like escaping from a murderer and they took your brakes? I'm very confused. Like, sir, just use your brakes. Um, but nonetheless, I think that probably was my favorite scene. It seemed very authentic, very natural
Yeah.
that she has this jolt and she's standing in the bike lane. She's like, "What?" And then this man comes at her and he tumbles and I thought it was very interesting. I kind of thought he was an asshole at first, but
Yeah.
you know,
That's what it came across to us first. As she offers to take him to urgent care, and as she said, the only thing urgent about urgent care is the name. Because clearly, you
absolutely,
ever been to urgent care, you might as well just take away 4 hours out of your day. Because that's how long you're
absolutely.
going to be at the minimum.
Unless you're the
But
first one there, absolutely.
exactly. But she waits for him after he gets his treatment. And this
Hmm.
is where the misperceptions of him come to fruition. As she said, as sh I don't want to jump ahead to when she meets him at his place, but as she said, or as you see, she's clearly thinking, like, well, you're telling me that you are desperate to start this app. I just saw a card
Hmm.
be declined in here. Do you think that she was worried that the guy would attempt to sue her? And that's possibly how you come up on money? Because she did at one point say, like, I don't know if he's going to try to sue me or not.
Right.
Because Carrie
I
has
think
money at this point.
I don't think so. I think she was just worried that he might ask her to pay. Like I think in the short term theory of it, it was like, oh man, his card declined. I did offer to help and assist, right? I'm still
Hmm.
here. Maybe he might ask me to pay. So I think that was her initial thought. I don't necessarily think that she
Hmm.
thought that he would sue her only because the only reason why I say that is because when he came out, he was shocked that she was still there. He was like, "Oh, you're
Yeah.
still here, like waiting for a total stranger. That's really nice of you." So that's the only
Yeah.
reason why I feel like it was more so like, "Damn, he
Hmm.
might ask me to pay. He might not ask me to ask sue me or anything like that."
Can someone be sued for stopping in a bike lane?
I don't know, but I don't want to
Nick,
find out.
I didn't hit you. I literally did nothing but stand here.
Yeah,
I can't be
I,
sued
I
for
don't think that's
standing
a
in the
thing.
crosswalk when cars are
Yes.
coming and they cause accidents. They got nothing to do with me.
Not in New York City, but I know that if I had to call a lawyer, I'm calling the lawyer Harvey from Suits. You know what I mean? Because yeah, he'll get
All right,
me.
so next up in White People Do the Darndest Things, Curry has stolen his address off of his medical form and just
Mhm.
magically shows up at his house with lunch. And he's
with
perfectly fine with this.
with 3 weeks worth of lunch at that.
And
three
who
weeks worth
eats
of
nothing
soup.
but soups for lunch? But as she walks in, he has by far the most amazing apartment I've ever seen on any
Yeah,
show. That place
definitely.
made abs. How do you walk into a place like that and still have a perception that maybe the guy maybe he's having money problems?
I
Did you
don't
know what you
know.
just walked into? Like
It's a
this
loft,
human.
an expensive ass loft at that, a 2 level loft at that.
Exactly. And in Manhattan, I want to say, right? Because that's where Curry
I
lives.
believe so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That is absolutely ridiculous. But I did love their conversation once everything gets started about um one about the soup, two about helping him with the app, three, she even gets out that she perceived these to be a problem that he was having financially, but he wasn't offended by her
Mm-mm.
even having that thought. It was more of, oh, well, no, this is what's really going on. What do you think about before the makeout scene, before they got to really making out? What do you think about their initial conversation?
Well, I think that it's good. Again, one of the things I think they've done this season is they've shown a lot of vulnerability with different characters and transparency, which I
Hmm.
think is good because it shows that you can have conversations that are deemed uncomfortable or hard
Yeah.
conversations that aren't really hard or uncomfortable. We just get to have them in a tone that's receptive. I think it's all about your tone, right? She didn't go in there saying,
Hmm.
"Well, I thought she was broke." She said, this is surprising to me. I definitely thought that maybe you were having a little bit of money trouble. And initially, most people would be offended, but like if you're not struggling, there's really no need to be
There
offended.
needs to be
Like I
offended.
can see
Yeah.
how you got that confused. My car did decline. I did say I really need to get this app done. Like, all right, fine. You know what I mean? I think that I like the conversation and that it flowed. It didn't seem forced. It seemed very like
Hmm.
authentic. Until all the slobbing, of course, happened.
Yeah. And as we close out everything with Carrie in this episode before we get to our last topic, and I know we're floating around in this episode is because that's kind of the best with this show is to float around. There's too many characters here to try to
Yeah.
go straight line here. And it's their second meeting at his place here. As they're making out, getting hot and heavy, and he forgets to do a work thing. And he gets a call from his partner, Paul, who chews him out. He decides to go finish his work thing so he can get back to Carrie. And then his partner decides this is the time to have a conversation with Carrie while he's on FaceTime on the other end and she's laying on the bed. What'd you think about
Mhm.
just what happened between Paul and Carrie over the phone and her getting out there and then her telling George, I know you said you were single, but you're
Mhm.
clearly married. Would you just think about that perception after everything that happened that second time around?
Listen, George, just hang up the phone. Hang up the. I'm so confused. End the call. Okay, it's the big red button with the X on it, or the
Hmm.
phone that looks like it's hanging up. Listen. I'm getting ready to send that to you right away. Click. That would have been
Yes,
the end of it.
that's
You
it.
left the phone on. It was very uncomfortable, very unnecessary. I think that I understood it. It did flow with the scene, so I'm not taking that away from it. But I do think
Oh
that
no, yeah.
I feel like some people don't realize that when they're in certain partnerships, when it comes to business, they don't understand that it can come off like a romantic relationship. It's taking up a lot of your time. This person is calling, and they don't seem to. My biggest thing was that just Paul didn't seem to respect George's time. Like, yes, he
Yeah.
owes you something, but he's still allowed to have a life. Like, a text would suffice. My God, Paul would annoy me. I would have him on block like once a week. But yeah, I mean, I think that Carrie did what was best for her. I was kind of hoping that it would go in the other direction, that he would kind of go outside and say, like it's done or whatever. just because I kind of feel like there's this weird misstep with Carrie and men in this season. But I get the
Hmm.
point of why it carried the storyline the way that they did.
Yeah, I mean, Paul said something very interesting during his conversation with Carrie when he said, "I know I'm coming across as an asshole, but I've been working with him for years. Like at times, this is the push he actually needs to finish stuff."
Hmm.
I
Right.
think that would have been the huge red flag because why would I couldn't even imagine being in any or entering in any situation where I fully understand this is a person that's going to have to be pushed to do things.
Right.
Even if they can do it great and they know they can do it great and they know what they're doing, I'm still going to have to push them and push them extremely hard. But by the end of the episode, I did like what Carrie said, like, this didn't work out, but at least now I know I'm back out there again because this was
Hmm.
her first time really taking a risk. Because the other time was with the producer and they were just sleeping with each other. It was
Right.
no risk or anything involved in just doing that. But now let's get to the final thing of this episode. And let's start off with Shay and their focus group
Ooh,
about
Lord.
their show.
Mm.
Uh, all I'm gonna say is I kind of knew where it was gonna go when it started off. Everyone praising the dad and not
Hmm.
mentioning them.
Hmm.
But what did you think once it turned and then we see someone else in her community? Oh, sorry, someone else in their community state that this just feels like a completely outdated fake character.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised either. Like you said, I kind of just felt it. Everybody. I mean, but I don't want to say rightfully so, but yes, because it's Tony Danza. I felt like that was
Yeah,
like
of
you're always
course.
gonna focus on the person that you know, right? But then when the guy asked like, well, what did you think of Che's performance? What do you think of their performance? And the person says like, I thought it was cheesy. I just didn't think it felt authentic and genuine. And I kind of thought it was gonna go that way anyway, just because
Hmm.
there was so much of this storyline about the TV show being very um sh- mimicking Che's life so much. I feel like if there was room for shaking it up of some sort, or like, I
Yeah,
don't know, blending
more
something
interpretate,
else in.
more
Yeah,
based off of a true story than you attempting to go
right.
directly about like this is what happened to me in my life.
Exactly.
You got to leave
Yeah.
wiggle room when you do this
Yeah.
type of stuff,
Yeah, and I don't
and
think
I
they
think
had
that's
that
what
at
Shay
all.
struggled. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I think it was I would have liked to see that it wasn't the entire um room of people, because I just felt like that was kind of that was hard for like the whole room to dislike the show or
Hmm.
to dislike your character. I just kind of felt, I mean, I'm pretty sure it happens. I'm pretty sure it happens, but
Yes, it does.
yeah, that was
Unfortunately,
just that was intense. So
yeah. What do you think about the conversation between Shay and Miranda
oh,
afterwards? Because boy, did this bring up. And this was the first time where none of this seemed to be on Miranda for me. All of this was on Shay because they didn't know how to deal with this. And it almost goes back to neither one of them knowing each other.
hmm,
Like, you would think Shay by now they would understand they have an extremely extra supportive partner who's going to want to be your biggest cheerleader at all times. And Miranda not fully understanding that I am in a relationship with someone who will soak my joy away whenever they are down. So what do you think about that interaction about her, about Shay shutting Miranda down quickly? Like, I don't need you to say this. I don't need you to be this way for me. And then I need time alone from you. Not just a day,
yeah. I
multiple days.
mean,
I need to not be around you.
listen, right? I'm one of those people. I don't sulk, but I need my space. I don't like my space being crowded. Like in a
Hmm.
relationship, like I'm like at 2 days at the most. It's gonna be 48 hours. I'm good. I just need to get my shit off for a second. Um,
Hmm.
I felt like Miranda was being too much of a mother. Like, read the room. And also, Che has to be honest about their feelings so that Miranda can understand how to be supportive in that moment. I feel like in that moment, Che just needed nothing, right? Like, it could have
Yeah,
been one line, which was, I'm here for you in whatever way you need me. That's it. But the whole, like, cheerleader thing, like, she really was treating Che like her child. And I feel like Miranda doesn't
yeah,
know how to be, she doesn't understand how to be a partner. Like,
mm,
it's been happening too many times in the season where Miranda shows up in ways that's not helpful. And I think by the third time you should get it in a way where you should ask the question like, well, how can I support you? I realized, I noticed last time that I did something, it didn't really sit well with you. How can I do XYZ? But
yeah,
again, like I said, Shay's responsibility to say, hey, I don't need this, I need XYZ. I really appreciate when you do XYZ, you know what I mean? um
mm,
but I wasn't surprised at the reaction of either one of them. That's Miranda's
yeah,
go-to. She wants to be like, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be. I mean, and my mom sometimes does that to me too, and I don't always need that. I'm not always in the space for that. You know what I mean? I need, but also that's not my partner, right? That's my mom, and the
yeah.
distinction is there for a reason. And I feel like Miranda tries to mom Che when that's not what they need. So they, like you said, they don't know each other. They have to have a real conversation, and Miranda needs to get her life together. Girl, move out, find a place, like, get your shit together. You're too old, or what they call it, not at this grown age. You too grown
But the
to
weird
be
part is,
doing this.
she's not even the one who's supposed to find a place. It's supposed to be Steve. That's what they agreed to.
Oh
And
yeah, that's true.
instead, she just doesn't want to be the villain. And I think even in her relationship with Shay, I think it's the same thing. She doesn't want to be the villain. So she tries to be super supportive of everything instead of
Hmm.
actually giving her honest opinion. That is what's missing from Miranda in Just Like That. Is that in the original Sex in the City, you know what Miranda did all the time? Give her opinion about everything. She was very firm in what she believed in, but it almost seems like this character has done a complete 360 and now is extremely meek and just a complete pushover. Because
Yeah.
that scene with Shay, I would have assumed it would have went different in the sense of Miranda finally saying, "Hey, look, if this is what you need, that's fine. But taking out your frustration on me when I'm trying to be helpful ain't gonna be the way we do this." But it
I mean,
also
I
is
don't
dependent
necessarily
on
think she took.
Shay. Yeah,
I was just gonna say I don't necessarily think she took that they took the frustration out of Miranda, but I do think that it was a response to, this has happened before, right? And you've reacted the same way. Like, it's not working for me. So I think there is a frustration there. So yeah, maybe she did take it out. Maybe they did take it
yeah,
out on her.
and I don't. It doesn't mean that she meant to,
Right, right,
but
right.
it
Yeah.
just happened. It's she's still caught up in her emotion, and because sorry, they're still caught up in their emotion, and they don't speak about it. And
Right.
that's one thing about Shay that we've noticed, that they don't ever talk about their full emotion. They let things build up, and when you do that, you never know when you could go off. Even when Miranda was hugging them, we saw the hold back because
Mm-hmm.
Shay was extremely close to completely breaking. And instead, she
Yeah.
made sure to pull away just in enough time so they didn't break. It was, to me, that was obvious. Like, okay, I need to
Yeah.
keep my shit together because if
Right.
I get a little bit of time by myself, I could figure out what to do next. I'm not worrying about how I'm gonna keep this apartment because now without the TV money coming in, I
Right.
don't know what's next. It's a very way, oh, and for us, it's a very fitting way to end this episode. Episode 5 is just like that. So, what are your final opinions on this episode?
I think that it's getting better. This episode did give was more meaty, more substance. Um, and I like it. I think that they did a good job. But each of the storylines, they didn't seem too long winded. They gave us just
Yeah,
enough. And I feel like it was complete. Like every character, the storyline was complete. And I like that because I can see that moving forward, we'll get more and more, and we'll be able to understand where they're going this season.
and don't feel like a need to introduce all characters in every episode. You don't
Mhm.
have to do that. You can give them a minor tidbit of it, like Lisa and Herbert, minor tidbit of it, pretty solid. Nala, she's happy because she's having sex again, minor tidbit, that's perfect.
Okay.
And then dig deep into a portion of which one of these couples need the most help. And Miranda and Che were perfect for that in this episode. So, I
Right.
mean, hopefully we continue on this path because while those first 3 episodes was a little rocky, these last two seem like they have straightened the ship and said, okay, we at least now know the direction we're going into. And I have faith from a person who wrote Emily in Paris for them to come up with some great stuff for And Just Like That, because I
Oh
love
my
Emily in
goodness.
Paris in every way humanly possible.
Mm.
But you can check out our review of episode 5 of Just Like That when it drops. It drops at 4 a.m. Thursday morning. Jeez Louise. But it'll be
Mhm.
there. Let us know your likes, comment, subscribe to our channel. Let us know your thoughts on Che and Miranda. Is this a couple that's built to actually last, or are we at the point where they need to break up? What do you think about Carrie's new awakening and her finally realizing that she could start dating again and being comfortable with dating again? What did
Mhm.
you think about Harry in this episode being the overprotective parent, something we've never seen before?
Dude.
And finally, what do you think about Lisa and Herbert? And is this a marriage that we can see these little issues becoming too big for them to survive? Peace, people.